Morning, everyone. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Hope everyone had a good weekend. Mine was pretty dang good. Nice and restful, I guess. Somewhat, at least restful in the sense of disconnecting from work and trading, so that's always nice. I just find it's really important to try and just get away, especially because, like, for me, I just work at home. And so getting away from, for me, it's not about, it's about getting out of the house because I spend too much time in the house. Otherwise, it can get a little redundant sometimes, at least feeling that way. How's my bachelor party? It wasn't mine, but it was someone else's, and it was a lot of fun. Went mountain biking, um, went rock climbing, played a ton of pickleball. Not your standard, I guess, stereotypical one. I don't know how many people do those these days anyway, though. Well, it doesn't look like Friday was particularly exciting. Looks like we just kind of popped up a little bit and just did some choppiness. Didn't get the fireworks people might have thought we were going to. Definitely got a little ways before we open here. And we're very far from these major zones this morning. Any advice for someone that's brand new? Take it slow. Don't rush into things. Demo trade. Focus on, the process, not the money. You want to really try and build a growth mindset. When it comes down to it, the strategy and the patterns, they're the easy part. That just takes a couple months to learn, really. Of course, there's little nuances that take years to learn. Um, but the main thing is the mindset. That's what usually stops people. And being focused on the wrong thing just extends that time. A lot of news this week. I haven't looked yet. Let's see. We got nothing today. I made that mistake last week. Unless today's Tuesday. Nope, today is Monday. Nothing really this morning. Tomorrow we have some news. This is pretty minor though. Consumer confidence could be interesting, but I don't think that's really gonna move the needle much. Wednesday is pretty big. I don't know what this guy's talking about, but seeing as it's red, that could add something. That's kind of pre-market though. I would assume he would be saying whatever he's gonna say before the market opens. And then Thursday, I mean, unemployment rate is pretty big. And unemployment claims, that's, those can be pretty big numbers. We'll see what those are. The theory is those have been cooked recently and manipulated. Either way, though, you can always interpret them in some way. Market will. And then Friday is actually off. So 4-day week again, with it being 4th of July. Morning, everyone. Just kind of getting set up for the day. I almost feel like I need to do a quick little, just look at least the last trade I did. Just like a little, for me, I felt like the weekend was such a disconnect in a good way that I have to just come in and like watch a couple of trade recordings to remind myself kind of what I'm looking to do. It just helps me get back in like kind of the mindset and like the patterns I'm looking for. So I'm just going to look at like a recording here. This is not a trade that I'm in. This is from, I think this is from last week. It's literally just looking for move up, unhealthy move into a zone, do a topping pattern. This was an aggressive topping pattern, but I think the signal was still good. And just using, for me, getting these more aggressive pullback entries now for just a way better price. This trade is interesting. I don't know if for those of you who remember it, I definitely think I want to be, at least at the moment while I'm learning how to manage these kind of trades better, because the big picture is like I want to be going for the big swing here. And I think the main target was down here, which was like 6 to 8x my risk. And here was 3. And so I eventually did take off half the trade. I had 11 contracts initially. But I want to, if my target's 6 to 8x, I think taking off a third or half, 3x is worth it, because if you think about it, especially if my stop loss is at break even still, well, you're in a way you're risking, from here to here, you're risking 3 to make 3. So in reality, it just turns into a 1-to-1 risk reward trade again. Even if I think that is a high chance of happening, I think the math to some extent warrants you taking half off there. And especially as I just get more comfortable with these trades, being smart about taking some off and playing it like that, I think is important. And obviously, like, every trade is going to be slightly different depending on where I get in. I think this was an extreme in terms of the entry was just crazy good, making my risk reward crazy good. I think a lot of the trades I've been looking at, it was more the targets are usually at 4 to 5x, maybe 6. And so kind of just, again, always playing that, okay, how does the risk reward look? And then playing it off of that. So just kind of some good quick reminders to see. I don't remember if this trade, I don't think this trade really, this is a while ago. No, this was kind of this was an old style where I used to get in on kind of a pull. Instead of getting in on a pullback, I'd get in up here. And that's what I don't want to do anymore. I want to get in down here on a pullback because this risk reward is just terrible. I mean, it's like 1x just to get up here versus if I get it down here, I get just way better of a price. And to get up there, it's, you know, at least 2, maybe 3 to the other end. So the risk reward is just better. And there's a couple spots last week that I missed. Well, not missed, but the entry didn't happen because it didn't do a pullback. And that's just going to be a part of what happens with this new style. I mean, on, what was this, Thursday when we had this crazy sell-off, I liked this as a bottom. But I needed to see it kind of, after this candlestick, I wanted to see it pull back. And so usually now I'm going to use a Fibonacci tool, enter in on a 50% pullback of this move. And so then I put my risk reward tool right here. And that would be, okay, I'm going to jump in here. If it didn't fill me, but I had an order ready. And this move would have got 3x, which would have been great. But you can see pretty much the move stalled out there. And so, but if I jumped in here, the move would have got me 1x, which would have just not been worth it at all. Because frankly, trying to take a stab at this bottom or this move and trying to catch a falling knife, I think is high risk. And so just not worth it with that risk reward. So that's kind of where my head's at with all that stuff. You know, always just trading's just always an adjustment game. Even for me, as someone who's been doing this a long time, you want to be always kind of constantly growing and focusing on where you're learning things. So that's kind of my random spiel for the morning. Anyone who's new, feel free to hit that sub button and I will answer questions when I can. Appreciate everyone being here as always. I'm trading the NASDAQ futures. Am I essentially buying at the entry then selling it as it goes down when going short? I'm basically either direction. What I pretty much do is, like, I look for, like, if this sells off down to this support zone, I look for it to reverse. My strategy is looking for reversals. And so I just mark these major zones and say, like, for today, what I'm seeing today is, you know, we had this crazy move. What was this, Wednesday and Thursday? And I think that puts us in this range, you know, kind of choppy after that, choppy Friday. We might be choppy today as well. And so we'll see what happens, but I would like to see what we do. I think coming up to this level is kind of an inflection point. It's not a great resistance level. Up here is definitely better because of this where this move topped out. But you know, I essentially look to say, okay, we're at a spot, a decision point that if we go slow down and look like we're going to reverse, I'm going to take a trade short. I don't take the continuation trade. I just focus on the reversals. And then on the flip side as well, I think if we retest the lows, I think that's a good spot to look for long. Doesn't mean that big picture we won't continue lower. We could just bounce off the lows, get a little trade right here, and then it reverses lower big picture wise. And so I try and be very neutral with my bias, because otherwise it's very easy to get married in a direction when, you know, this market can really go anywhere right now. And I don't use any other indicators or volume or anything. That's just personal preference. So really the zones I'm looking at are just, and I draw them mainly off a 15-minute chart or a 5-minute. It is kind of these are 3 of the main ones. This one, I might delete here in a second because it's kind of just middle of the range. I'll just delete it right now. I mean, there's kind of these levels, but you want to stick to the extremes because those are the more likely ones to hold. And then on a daily chart, I mean, just as we see this kind of, you know, you could say this is a bull flag. You could say this is a topping pattern or even a reverse head and shoulders. I don't really like it as a reverse head and shoulders because to me, head and shoulders needs to have, you know, it comes down and then does the bottom versus this is up and doing a bottom. That to me, that's not really a pattern I use. But there's definitely a solid double top here. I think it's kind of seen, okay, is this bottoming at this level? Which we might be. You know, this is definitely a bottom at the moment. I think it just depends on how this develops. We definitely could test this if we want to sell off, or we might retest the highs here and continue up. And this was just another little fake lower in kind of this consolidation period that we're in after this crazy run up. Gold and silver are just kind of still selling off pretty good. I don't really have much to do with those. The ES on a daily chart looks pretty much the same, to be honest. I don't really think there's that much to read into there and the difference between the two. I've mainly just been looking at the NASDAQ recently, just because, just to simplify things. I used to trade both the NASDAQ and the S&P 500, but it just came to a point where it was just easier to trade one, and it was just personal preference. I think there's no reason to trade. NASDAQ's a little more volatile, I think, that I like, but the ES is a little more methodical and readable. I think predictable, which I think can be nicer for beginners. I seem a little sad today. I think it's more of just it's Monday morning, you know, a little tired. I was at a bachelor party over the weekend, so my sleep was a little. I wasn't going to bed at my normal hours, you know, and the time zone was slightly different, so that's kind of it. Waiting for the caffeine to kick in, I think. I think I'm more just a little groggy this morning. Still got like 15 minutes till this thing opens. I don't really trade prop firms, so I'm not really gonna do a challenge passing those. So I think it's better to I trade my own money, so I think it's better to just do that. If you want to do prop firms, I think it's better to go the demo trading route and then do a small money real account and then go prop firms, because prop firms for beginners are just a money pit. Statistically, it's literally statistically proven. Looks like my timer is slightly off, so I need to reset I forget how to do this. I did this once. I need to sync my clock. Lily Capital has been rotating away from tech. Have I thought about shifting back to the ES at some point? Even though capital has been rotating, I don't think that's going to make a difference. Like, sure, there could be a minute difference in the movement. But I think at the end of the day, there's always going to be more volatility and money in tech. Even if it rotates out for a little while, it's going to go back. Like right now, it might be, that's just how markets move, right? Like sometimes the energy sector will be good, or finance will be good, or tech will be good. But I think it's unless it for some reason came to a grinding halt, but it's like all the massive companies are still all tech, The platform I use for trading is NinjaTrader. It's the one on the screen. It's the one I suggest. So there's a link for that in the description. Pops up in chat every now and then. Yeah, what I'm trading is the micro NASDAQ futures. I just trade futures. Yeah, I just synced my clock, so I should be good. I'll actually watch it here in a second to see if it flips right away, so I'm good there. Yeah, someone taught me that last week of how to sync the clock, so that's nice. My basic approach with the fair value gap indicator, like if we look today, you can see like this move right here, big move up, has a big fair value gap indicator. I use them as magnets in the sense of, okay, this move pops up here, and when you're looking at it, well, this down here is a magnet of an unhealthy move. So I think it's going to go up and reverse and give back pretty much most of this fair value gap. And so as a reversal trader, I can, looking at, okay, well, it came up to here already. This I could use as a resistance zone. And so as it came up here, I could say, well, we're popping up to a resistance zone, and there's a unhealthy move into that level. If it slows down here and reverses, it's pretty likely to go all the way down here and give back most of this move. That's just how healthy moves in the market work and what I've observed over time. And so it makes it a really easy target to say, okay, well, if I enter, like, let's say I entered in here, this is all hypothetical, of course, I didn't trade this. This was over the weekend. Well, I'm risking, let's say, $100 here. And then if it moves down to here, well, that's probably like, it's probably like 4x. So you would get like $400 on that move. And so you don't have to be right very often. I can even use my risk reward tool. And yeah, it goes to about 4x, it looks like. And so that's what I'm looking to do. I'm literally looking to see, okay, we had to move up into a level, and I'm going to reverse it. Obviously, there's little nuances in there, but that's kind of the big picture. And so right now, we don't really have that at the moment. Overnight, this is a healthy move up. It fits into a channel pretty well. We are kind of breaking it at this resistance level, but we kind of broke through it. This is kind of middle of the range. It could reverse here and sell off, right? We could start right at the open selling off. But to me, it's not and I'm not looking to capture every move, right? The moves I want to capture are these ones, because those, to me, that's where my edge is. It's not about catching every move in the market. It's about capturing the ones that your strategy tell you to do. And so I want to look for something like this. And right now we don't really have something like that. But the idea is that once the market opens, we might get a pop down, and then I can look for a reversal there, or we'll get a pop up and I can look for a reversal here. Or if it pops up even more, I can look for a reversal here. And so that's kind of the 3 spots I would be looking for to take a trade this morning. And of course, once it gets there, I look at more of a 1 minute chart, kind of analyze what that trend is, because I want to make sure that this trend, if we go down here, is broken before I look for a reversal. Because otherwise we could get to this and just continue to sell off. And I'm going to lose money if I try and bet against that, right? So it's definitely a dance at those levels to figure out why and when to enter. And I'll walk through everything of that I see as that happens and explain it. I've actually never used RSI. Frankly, to me, watching these moves, I can tell when the RSI, it's the same thing, right? The RSI is just a delayed metric of the volatility. And so to me, I can just see that by looking at the candlesticks. A lot of indicators in reality are delayed metrics that just tell you what you can basically gather from the chart. Obviously, volume and order flow are different, but that's why I don't really use stuff like that, because to me, I can still see that in the candlesticks if it's overextended or not, and that's all those really tell you. It's a nice way to, maybe when you're first starting out, to have easy confirmation of, hey, oh, this is overextended. But to me, it just adds clutter on the chart that I don't need. If you're on a simulated trading chart with delayed data, you will be behind. You do have to pay for data on pretty much every chart. Every platform, sorry. Otherwise, they'll give you 10 or 15 minutes delay. So I've got a couple minutes before things open here. I'll look at a couple questions and then kind of go through things before the market opens. Feel free to hit that like button on the stream to kind of push it to more people this morning. As soon as it's Monday morning, we can kind of get the week off on a good start here. At the moment, it's looking like we're going to be choppy today, but I could totally see us opening with some volatility as well. But it's definitely been choppy since this craziness. I have never seen this before. This sell-off was insane on Friday. Just seeing the fact that it dropped, I think it was 3% in I think it ended up being 30 minutes. The bottom literally exactly at 10 o'clock. But that was just an insane drop. And so I think, it had, a healthy rebound. I mean, this is over a 50% pullback. Had a healthy pullback and then, retested the lows. That's pretty standard for those moves. And that's why I was careful about looking for a reversal on this on Thursday, because it's so unlikely that it just does this. Most of the time it'll do a bounce and then retest, or bounce and chop, because this is such a crazy move. Everyone's like, what do we do now? Can you borrow my crystal ball? I wish I had one. A lot of traders are using Bookmap. Why don't I use it? Just because I don't. I mean, frankly, I haven't even tried. But there's so many ways to trade, and you don't have to do it. There, especially on social media, I feel like it goes through waves of popularity of certain things, like ITC. I think I'm saying that right, or ICT. See, I don't even know all of them very well. That was super popular for a while. I think it still is. But it goes through all these buzzwords, and these trends that people get in on. And really, it's not about jumping in on a new strategy or new trend. It's about finding what works for you. And this is what works for me. And so there's no point in deviating from it. The VIX is creeping up. A little bit, but I would say the VIX is pretty... I don't think it's crazy right now. I mean, that's based on what we were doing. I mean, we didn't make a new high based on this last move down. Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing with trading that people get stuck in is what I call the learning loop of just jumping from strategy to strategy and not actually getting good at trading. I was stuck in that for a while myself even. A little bit of a sell-off right now into the open. This is the NASDAQ futures chart. Futures just have an 8 leverage, so there's not really a like 50x leverage or whatever you see on, I think, crypto a lot of the time, or I don't even know exactly where a lot of people see that, but you don't see that on futures. I think standard is the basic is like you get 400 times leverage technically. So, yeah, if you're seeing the vertical stream, go to my YouTube channel. You'll see the main one there. Let me quickly run through everything I'm seeing this morning before the market opens here. I think we might open pretty volatile, so I think I'll want to lock in here in a second. As always, appreciate everyone being here. And again, if I miss your questions, I apologize. But basically this morning on the NASDAQ futures chart, I'm looking to... these are the main levels. I mean, the main one is like, this is the high, this is the low I'm looking at. I think there's kind of a level here that's more of a mid-range level that I don't think is as important. And, we're kind of we're pretty choppy right now in this range here. Mainly because I think this is just throwing a lot of what the fuck into the market right now. And people aren't really sure which direction we're going to go. I think if you look at a daily chart, there's just multiple ways to see what this looks like. There could be a double top here, and we could be selling off. We could be kind of doing a little bottoming pattern right here and test the highs. I think there's signals that point both directions. And so for me, I'm going to try and be unbiased today and say, okay, I'm just going to see if we pop up to this level, I'll look for a short. If we sell off all the way down here, I'll look for a long. Maybe if we test this, I'll look for a long off of that, but somewhere down there. And then if we pop all the way up to here, I'll look for a short. And so those are kind of the main 3 levels I'm looking at for trades this morning. And then when it comes to news, we have no news today. We definitely do have a decent amount of news this week, but there's actually none today. So that's kind of nice. And we're pretty much opening here at kind of a overnight low here. But again, like I think the overnight action, there's not really a crazy level to think about. I might actually just mark the overnight high here as a little level to see if we pop up, test that, and sell off. That's possible, but I don't really see a great level down here. I want to wait and see how this opens. Give it a couple minutes. I don't really think there's going to be an entry in the first couple minutes just based on where we are at with levels. I want to kind of see, seeing as it's Monday morning, I want to kind of see what the market's doing, see how it's setting up. Daily profit goal. I don't have a daily profit goal. I think that's a really not a good thing to do, because it puts pressure on you to force a trade in a bad market. Instead, you want your mindset to be, I am looking for a certain strategy or a certain setup because that's my edge. If it shows up, I'll take a trade, and if it doesn't, I just won't take a trade. Because it's not about catching every move in the market. It's about catching the ones that make you money. Big spike this morning. What is this range? 100 points. That's pretty standard for our opening candle. 100-point candle on the NASDAQ has been, I would say, pretty standard as the opening kind of whip happens. You know, on the other day, like we had an opening spike that signaled a good bottom. I don't know if that's the case. That had a good support zone and a reason to go long off of that. I don't think I want to necessarily go long on a pullback right here. I think to me it's just a little choppier this morning. I want to give it a little more time to see what's going on. How long do I plan on streaming? No plan to end at the moment. I am planning to just continuously do it. 4 days a week. You know, generally Monday to Thursday. I need some soft coffee music. That's up to you. I have no music on the stream, so you can play whatever you want. I don't want to force my music choice on thousands of people. If you want silence, you can have silence, and if you want music, you can have music. To me, that seemed more of a logical choice. Nice little spike here. Probably going to wait the first 10 minutes this morning. Video that shows the risk reward. If you setting it up, if you haven't, well, if you purchased the risk reward indicator, there is this tutorial video there. And if you just want a tutorial on it, there is one on my website that will walk you through it. The Get My NinjaTrader indicators link will do that. Hitting these highs, this is a potential spot, but I think it's a pretty minor level. I mean, we did already, well, I guess technically the high was this little spike. I think it's very unlikely we sell off here. But we could, if we're just looking for a little fake higher. It's been 5 minutes here. Question is, will we just come down and test this level and continue higher? I would take a short here if it's set up really good, but I think it's going to be very hard to find a candlestick that shows a topping or a good stop because these candles are all very big. I think maybe if we set up a double top, just with the idea that if I get a good entry, well, the risk reward is there. So the likelihood doesn't need to be crazy. Just with that sense of we could just give the move back up quickly, and it looks like it already did that. So just basically just retested the opening candle there. The risk reward indicator is only on desktop and only on NinjaTrader. Sadly, all other platforms don't allow a custom drawing tool. Let's hope it's not another chop day. Well, yeah, we'll see. We'll see if this turns into an actual sell-off or it's just a pullback and we continue going higher, or just this opening volatility turns into like a wedge. That is very possible for it to do something like that. I didn't get in on a short there just because it happened way too fast. There wasn't enough confirmation to get in. In terms of bottom, I mean this we could retest this low as a support. Just of thinking of what could a range develop like today, we could retest this and bounce. So I wouldn't be against looking for a long down here if we sold off and set up down there either. With the fact that I think this is potentially looking more and more like it could just range. I think it just seems like, especially with the pre-market price action and Friday's price action, it's more likely we range. How does a wedge work? So in this case, pretty much it's like you have this opening move, and then it's just that's the big volatility spike in unhealthiness, and then you have it, it just recovers some of that, and that's a volatile move, but it's smaller, and then it recovers some of that. It's essentially like it moves, does a 50% pullback, and then a 50% pullback, and then sometimes a 50% pullback, and then it starts to just kind of chop before it either, it starts to break out and volatility increases again. And I don't really trade on sometimes, some people have a pattern of like, oh, they'll take a breakout of the wedge. I don't do that because a lot of the times when wedges break, they don't just all of a sudden just find volatility or momentum when they break a lot of the time. But this could also be, pullback and a new high. The main thing is the healthy move. The unhealthy move that this was recovered, making it healthy. And now it's like, okay, are we going to go up or are we just going to retest this? Right now, it's not really at a spot where I'd want to do anything. Because if I look for a short here, because we already bounced here, I think it almost puts a minor support here. And so the target of the trade would only really, the easy money is here. And if I'm jumping in a trade like up here, depending on where that happens, especially if it's like this, it's like I'm not getting good risk reward to get there. I'm getting decent if it goes all the way down. But it's not a clean, easy move that I'd be looking for from that unhealthy move. Because that unhealthy move is basically gone. Why not watch spot charts? I have no idea what that is. Yeah, and at my sizing, like I don't need to take, the money from trading doesn't come from a lot of trades. It comes from increasing your size. And so if you can take one trade a day or like every other day and it's profitable or more often than profitable or, or good risk reward to where on average you're profitable, that's all that matters. And for me, being more patient and taking less trades has made that easier because it's not as mentally draining too. There's a lot of things for trading that seem like they make sense in theory, but then when you try and execute it consistently day in and day out, it's very hard to actually do. Just doing a little stretching while I wait for this. We could be double topping here, but again, like the unhealthy move potential just isn't there. We're not at a really big picture level. Like on a 5-minute, to me, this looks like a little fake lower and it's going to push us higher. I think that's what I see. A long down here would have been great, but obviously it happened in 2 seconds from the open, and so that's not something I'm going to take. And so I think as we punch up here, we'll see how we react to these levels. If we get an unhealthy move to the upside. We're at 9:45, which is kind of an initial a reversal timing, but I'm not really seeing a reason to look for that at the moment. At the moment, it looks like we just had kind of a pullback and a continuation. I do show my entries and walk through them and talk about them and I show everything. You just got to be patient enough to stick around to see it. Because I'm not trading like 5 times a day. I'm just looking for that golden apple. Can I do a video on account margins? If you go to my YouTube channel, there's a video about futures, and that will walk you through everything. If having $50 in your account isn't enough, even if you're trying to trade the MES, you need $50 to trade one contract, but you're going to need a little bit more wiggle room in your account. So I'd say account-wise, at the minimum, $200 to $300 is probably where you need to start. And on the MES, you can probably risk about generally when I look, you can risk between $20 to $40 per trade if you're, doing my style. That's a pretty big candle there. To me, that would usually be a topping candle. In terms of big rejection, just the tricky part is it's not in a spot that I'm looking to short yet. And so just because there's a big candle there doesn't mean it's necessarily a good... Like, I don't want to just get sucked into the small micro pattern. Again, I want to see it move up a little bit more. And honestly, it recovering that right away is definitely a bullish signal too. It's not really in a spot that I see a good potential yet. That's why I like to lean more into the big picture than the small. The 1 minute chart's really just for getting an accurate entry, versus the big picture is really where I'm finding where I want to take a trade. And really that's up here. Maybe we get a little bit of a pullback here and one more push up and then it fails. But right now this is kind of just turning into a flag out that might continue higher. Pretty clear trend line. Yeah, you could definitely put a trend line here. Kind of off of this. I mean, you could also say maybe there's this. We'll kind of see how it develops. Sometimes Mondays are like this, just kind of a hurry up and wait while the market's like groggy as well, trying to figure out how it wants to start the week. My stream's delayed. I should just have like a 2-second delay, so that's probably in your end. Some people have actually found that if you want to watch somewhere else than YouTube, Twitch, which I'll put a link in the chat, has less delay. I think most people don't find a delay on YouTube, but some people seem to. So that's just another spot you can go watch. Doesn't really matter. chat's more active on YouTube, but this is a really interesting second big bar here. I can see the potential for a double top here, but just verbalizing I can see the potential to me feels like it's mentally me trying to convince myself to get in, because it's not really at a spot I want to take a trade. You know, this just seems like chop. Again, I think the big picture is higher. Obviously, we just made a new high there. It's just not very clear right now. There's not really a reason to force things. If this rejects too, it might just be getting into like some choppiness, some choppy big bars. And that's not really a great signal either. Friday's high. I'm assuming you're meaning Friday's high from the pullback. Like here. I mean, I'm definitely watching this. Because technically Friday's high is... oh, that's Thursday. Sorry. I mean, yeah, like there's definitely kind of this... I think this is kind of maybe what we're bouncing off of and going higher off of. But again, it's just kind of choppy, crappy price action right now. I think it just looks like we want to push higher. That's where it's like, don't want to get sucked into the 1 minute, because it's very easy to get sucked into this. You know, I could have easily said, oh, well, this is a big candlestick on a short, same thing here. And then boom, it's not been a good spot. And I would have added on 2 losses. Here it just made a brief new high, and maybe it does another bait candle. But once you get to a point where it just starts doing bait candles, it's not easy to read, and it's, to me, it's not worth it. You're just, the chance of gambling just goes up. And we're in this upwards trend line right now. You just asked AI and it said someone can make millions of dollars off day trading in a single day. I mean, it's possible, but you also probably have to be risking hundreds of thousands of dollars. You're not going to take $5 and make $1 million. And if you do, you had to hit some crazy, you basically hit the lottery. I've seen big traders make crazy money off of trades, but that's, you know, at the end of the day, though, they're risking like $500,000. That's why trading is all about sizing. If you can make money risking $100, you can make money risking $1,000. You just need to mentally get there. Now I like this as like a little fake higher here and a big candle. But just with this, how this chop has been, I think I would want to see some kind of lower high. And definitely like risk reward wise, it's like I'd be getting a pretty good price on a pullback here. If it does pull back, I think if it sells off a little bit more, maybe I'll enter in here, just with the idea that there is, I am getting like 4x here, but it looks like it's just going to go without me. And that's okay. That's, I'm not looking to chase that. Getting in down here would not be worth the risk. I'd be getting 2x only down here. I need to wait for a pullback in this kind of market. So, if we're just doing crazy moves like that, that's okay. That's not really, I'm not chasing those. It's not worth the risk. But I think if it would have bottomed here and pulled back, I would have jumped in. Because I think at that point, the risk reward would have been worth it. Could have scaled out half at 2x right here, middle of the range. This because we could totally bottom right here on this move. And then leave half off to, kind of go for these lows, get 4x. And, see what it looks like down there. If it looks like it's going to continue lower or not. But if it's just going to, top out and go down, that's not what I'm looking for. And even though I saw the potential for this and it happened, doesn't mean that you don't want to chase this. To me, that's not good trading for me. Half of the deal is predicting the moves, and then the other half is, can you actually make good money from them and execute it consistently. This is a nice little spike lower coming into 10 o'clock. See if it bottoms here. I would take a long down here. Just with how this day is. I mean, it seems like we're up and down. I think it's totally possible that we bounce off of down here. Hard sometimes seeing those moves when it's what you were looking for, but sometimes, the market's just kind of funky this morning. This could be a nice move that I think on a day like today, definitely, this spike got reversed. This spike got reversed. So I don't think there's any reason to think that this spike doesn't get reversed, at least like 50%. So if you get, if I can get in down here, at least capture up to the middle of this move, that can still be a nice trade. 10 o'clock is the more major reversal timing that I like. But we could still, if we just bounce here and go into a wedge, I want to be aware of that too. Five-minute just kind of looks like a little fail breakout up here. We'll see how this bottom forms, if it bottoms. So in terms of checklist, I would say the major trend is aligned in the sense of, I think we can definitely reverse this. I think we're at a reversal zone that we can do that off of, and the market's pretty back and forth. I think we could go either direction right now. I don't have a strong read on direction. I think the overnight action in the day has shown us that we're more back and forth versus directional today. Definitely an unhealthy move right now. I think breaking this low actually would be good for a long setup. big, like if we get a big, we got a tiny slowdown here. If this big candlestick breaks this low and I think reverses pretty quickly, I would look to jump in on that. To me, that would be a nice bottom that's put in. But at the moment, you know, this could just keep going lower. We could get some momentum to the downside, and I'll just stay out of it until it looks like that's slowing down. But I think if this whole candlestick just gets flipped, I actually really like that for a long. And I'll look to jump in. To me, I need to see it recover this candlestick. That's kind of confirmation that this is a rejection and a fake lower. And I'll jump in on essentially a pullback to here and look to go higher, you know, and again, getting good 3x to the other side. But if it just kind of pops up here and goes down, I think that's confirmation that it's going to continue lower. It didn't quite make it up here for a clean rejection. To me, the signal isn't quite in yet. I think it could be just recovering a little and still continue lower here. Not really a 1 minute trend to look at here. You know, it's more of like, okay, we had big move down here and it's starting to slow down. The question is, does it slow down in reverse or does it slow down and go like this? And this was just the start of a larger trend moving. This candlestick seems like it's not rejecting. So it looks like this is going to continue lower for now. So just kind of seeing how this plays out. It could bottom here. Still, it's not out of the game yet. I think I still need to see a test up here and then enter in on a pullback though. Otherwise, this could definitely easily trap and continue lower. I think if this double bottoms here and breaks this and makes a new high, I would put an entry here to jump in on a pullback. I think that's a good enough confirmation for a long here, especially in this market, to jump in on with a good price if it pulls back. Seeing a 7 second. I actually do see a 5 second delay today. Usually it's 2 or 3, so I'm not sure what's going on there. Just kind of is what it is at this point. I can't really do anything about it. Maybe my internet's asleep this morning as well. I'm not doing the ES anymore. I'm just trading the NASDAQ. Just personal preference, really. This looks like it's just going to grind lower. This looks like it needs one more fake lower if it's going to bottom, or it's just going to keep going lower. I mean, big picture, I think big picture looks pretty good to go lower in terms of this is a bait higher. It's going to be difficult to move through all this. There's definitely a lot of support in here. We could just flush to these lows. That's totally possible. And I'm not against taking a long down there either. Can't I just trade off of this zone? I'm looking for a trade here, but I'm not just gonna blindly buy at these zones because they can be they can fail, right? I still think it's possible if this pops up here and shows a good rejection, but to me it seems like these candlesticks are just getting gobbled up, and we're continuing lower. So a long does not seem like it's ready yet. 10:30 is kind of the other timing that I like for reversal. So maybe we sell off here for a little bit and then look for a bottom at 10:30. Gonna look for a sell-off off of that zone. If you're talking about this one, looking for a short here, that's a continuation trade, and I just don't do those. I like to keep it simple and look for reversals at the zones. Adding more in trading makes sense a lot of the time in terms of like, oh, it'll help, you'll take more trades and you'll find more opportunities. And in reality, executing that is a little harder. And so I keep it super simple and just stick to one thing. And stick to, like up here, stick to looking for a good pullback. Because again, up here, entering in like somewhere down here and chasing this move, obviously in hindsight, it works very well now that it's at 2 or 3x. But that assumed that it went all the way to this low when we've already been choppy, and that it breaks this to get a decent risk reward, making it worth it. I used to do that, and now I prefer to jump in on a pullback that's like this, if it pulls back and fills me, because then the risk reward is way better. And so I don't have to take them very often. I don't have to be right very often for it to pay off substantially. And that's more of what trading is. It's about, what you can do over weeks and months versus day to day. I only trade for like an hour and a half a day. It's just part of what I do, right? It's not, it doesn't encompass my whole life. I think I'm going to mark this as a support zone. Just because we have a pretty nice double test here that I think looks pretty good. Just to see if this, we have an unhealthy indicator here. There'll probably be another one here that'll pop up here in a second once this candle closes. I definitely think it's possible to reverse this move. I just want to wait to see this. We're kind of in what I call a spike and then trend, where we had a big start to this move, and then it's just kind of gone into more of a healthy move here. And so because of that, I'm going to need to see something like a more healthier bottoming pattern that looks probably like a head and shoulders, something like this. And then look to get in long somewhere off of that signal. Because otherwise, looking for a quick stab, it's more likely that it, it's harder to those bottoms won't necessarily be as fast. Every little push up is just getting sold off. I just realized even on my end, I was looking at the stream on delay. Technically, it only says I have a 1 or 2 second delay like normal. Maybe 2 to 3 seconds. Sorry. The checklist does get checked off manually. It's an indicator I've created. Sometimes I don't check it off mid-go because, you know, I'm focusing on actually trading, but I try and check it off because I think it is helpful. But, you know, sometimes the market moves quickly, and frankly, it's more for you guys versus me. And so sometimes, you know, if I need to just focus, I don't do it. We're just kind of in this 1 minute downtrend right now, but this is a nice move down on a 5 minute. Like if you look at, you know, in terms of unhealthy move down, this is kind of what I'm looking for, you know, like this is an unhealthy move up, it gets reversed. Unhealthy move up, this one chopped for a while, but it eventually gets reversed. You know, you could say this was an unhealthy move down, it got reversed at least, I think 60% of the way. Same thing here, kind of unhealthy move, bottoms and reverses. Some of them happen quickly to where we can look for a quick reversal, or some, you know, happen a little slower. But that's the idea of what I'm looking for. I want to see a move like this and look to reverse it. Now, at some point, it does kind of get to a point where it might not reverse. And so that's just kind of part of, you know, figuring it out and seeing what makes sense the most. Yeah, sometimes I'll try and do it in real time. Sometimes I'll do it after to kind of explain it. But we're definitely getting down to this more major support zone that's drawn off of you know, if we look at an actual 15-minute chart here. And we're coming down to this main support. And you could almost put a little trend line here. Either way, this is a big support zone. So my thought with that is, okay, we have a big move down. Even if we are going to break this and continue lower, it's pretty likely we have a little bit of a move back just to make it more of a healthy move in the market before it continues down. But if I enter in on a 1 minute, I can enter in here and probably get out here, and that's probably like a 3x trade. And so that's what I'm looking for. And then obviously if it reverses the whole thing, well, you get much bigger of a move. This is starting to accelerate too. Sometimes what happens with these moves is, you know, you'll get that spike. It'll trend into this channel. This is a very healthy channel here. It's still aggressive. It's healthy on a 1 minute. On a 5 minute, it's not. And then it breaks out of here and starts to accelerate too much. And then that's where it can start to do a V bottom, and you can look for a reversal. So that's kind of what I'm looking at here, potentially forming. I think I'm going to adjust this. I mean, I'm going to pull this bottom down a little bit so I can just see that helps mark that low. And then just going to see how this bottom plays out. That would have been a ridiculous short. Yeah. But again, I try and think of it as I didn't miss this move because my strategy didn't say to get in. Because if you just, especially in this market, if you let yourself get mentally whipsawed by the fact that there are big moves that you don't catch, you know, it's just gonna mentally drain you and you're gonna trade frustrated. I was looking for a trade up here, but again, it just sold off right away. And I don't think, based on how the market was acting this morning, there was a reason to jump in more aggressively. This still looks like it's just kind of selling off. Still just waiting to see if this looks like it's going to bottom. I think ideally it chops here a little bit, does a big fake lower candle and rejects. But we do have kind of that momentum and it's clearly slowing. I think another possibility is it pops up here. Because this is a higher low, it makes a new high here. To me, I think that's a decent signal too. And I think I would look to get in on a pullback here. Pretty dang tight stop, but again, I think that allows the aggressiveness to work in the sense of it's a an aggressive entry, but the risk reward is good. So made a new high there. I'd only risk half size here, like this is a scale in. I don't know if it'll let me, if it'll pull back here. It might just pop. But again, if I enter in up there, it's not good risk reward. It's very easy for this market to pull back, I think, right now. Reversal pattern is kind of like this double bottom with this kind of, this is pretty bullish. It hasn't really broken this downtrend, but because to me, it broke out the other side of this channel too, I think that's a pretty good signal. So to me, that's kind of the reversal pattern. And I'm kind of just waiting to see if it pulls back here and fills me. If it pops up a little bit more, I'll still adjust. I like getting filled on a 50% pullback. To me, that's a good spot. You know, it's essentially, it's popping up here, comes down and retests this area basically, finds support there, and then pops. And if it just pops without me, that's fine. You know, entering in all the way up here, the risk reward is crap again, right? I don't want to do that. Even if the move plays out, it's just not, long term, it's not worth it. You know, I think on a 5 minute, there's really nice fair value gaps here. Even if we pop up to here, that's a good move, which is here. Essentially, I'm looking to see how high this pulls up, and then I'll get a pullback from that move. Because it's definitely broken this downtrend now. And if it just, again, if it just goes like this, I'm not taking a trade. I don't think here was enough of a signal to jump in on this. It did a nice little candle here, but I think entering in right here on these couple candlesticks, there wasn't enough confirmation there. It could have easily popped up here and continued to sell off. Could still get in on a pullback here. I'm totally fine with entering right here as well. It's not as many contracts, but and then I'll just put my stop below the lows here. For me, it's nerve-wracking jumping on these pullbacks because to me, I'm like, I think that, oh, well, if it pulls back here, why isn't it just going to sell off? But it's that. So that's for me, that's new with my trading. But I think the risk reward just plays out so much better. I think, you know, target this. I would rather 3 before this. I don't think we're going to get this whole move back up. I think the move, a bounce up to here would be ideal. I think that's more reasonable up to here. And depending on how we move up there, I'll scale out some here, or, you know, I think we got to break above this before I go break even or pull my stop up. You know, and if this just pulls back like that and knocks me out, that's totally fine. You know, I think it's a good spot. I like the potential for a bottom. You know, big picture, we're at the lows. Risk reward is good. I don't need to be, you know, right every time. That's the whole idea with having good risk reward. It's about just letting it play out over time. You know, playing those odds. Just gotta let it do its thing. You hate pullbacks too? Yeah, it feels very foreign to me. Like normally I would jump in here. Like to me, this would be a signal. Oh, this pullback has been confirmed. It's a nice rejection. But again, that risk reward is terrible. And that's, you know, over the last couple months, I've been really adjusting my trading to saying, okay, here's to me, this is a bottoming signal. And so once I see that signal, you know, my stop is in a good spot. Like that's what matters more. Is okay, has the bottom being put in? I've been getting very good at spotting that. That's where my edge is. And in terms of then entering in after that, it wasn't as good. And so now it's like I'm trying to get better at that because entering in on a pullback feels weird. But obviously, in hindsight, when you look at this, it's beautiful. I mean, the signal to me to get long was here, but if I jumped in here, the risk reward, I would only have 3 contracts, and the risk reward would be, way, way less. And sometimes it's half the size. Just, every setup slightly different. And so here I'm definitely going to move my stop up below this low now. I'm going to take some risk off the table. I think this is a great bottom. I think, this is where we started to accelerate. And so I think this is an initial easy move. And we'll just kind of see how this develops. Again, I think if we pop up here, I don't think we're going to reverse this whole thing. I think the easy money is up here. And so in that case, I think I would probably take 2 off at about 2x. I might, or 3. 3 out of 5 of my contracts. I think I might just put a limit order up here. We'll kind of see how this plays out. It's too soon to move it yet. But if we get some good candles here, maybe I'll just do a tight trailing stop if that makes sense instead. But I think taking half off at pretty much up here, I think is a smart move. And kind of seeing how this develops. We could start an uptrend like this. But, I think today is just with how we were from the open up here. Now we could come back to here in terms of, actually, I think I might remove this. I'll just make this a little tighter. A healthy pullback, I think, would be up to retesting this high. So as we get up here, that makes the pullback harder to hold. And the risk reward is not great. And so it's a juggling action as you continue, and I think taking 2 off here it makes sense. Obviously there's the potential to go all the way up here. I think that's kind of unlikely though. And so I think it's a constant juggle of what makes sense. And if we pull back to here, I think that's a logical support, and I'll look to let it go higher. But I think if we pop up here, I think I'm just going to do a trailing stop of my 3 contracts here. I'm going to move the rest to break even. I'm going to remove this 10 o'clock timing thing. I'm going to move my 3 up to here, basically take off 2x. If it pulls back, but if it holds this and goes, then I have upside. But I'm happy to take 3 off at 2x here, especially on that little punch up. And I think if it punches up more, up to 3, I'll start to just trail up most of it. Because I think I'd rather just, I think the market just has a high potential to pull back, especially at this level. And even for these contracts, I think a good level for it to bounce is down here. That's a far pullback to hold through. Wouldn't really feel great to let the trade come that far on me. So hopefully we punch up here and I can just trail everything. But I don't want to. Another hard thing for me right now is because the risk reward is so good, it feels easy to take off quickly when there's still massive upside in this swing. I mean, if we are going to give back this whole swing, it's possible. The upside is crazy. And so I don't want to get out of the trade too early. And so I think scaling out some makes that easier. And allowing myself to get better at holding through these swings. Because I was okay doing it when my risk reward was less. But now that the risk reward is much more favorable, it's harder. because the money just pops up a lot quicker. I think we're kind of in this tight uptrend line right now. Holding down to here, I think it's getting to where I would not want to do that. So it's definitely at a funky spot right now. I think I'm gonna trail this. I'm gonna tightly trail these 3 contracts with just a previous trailing stop. Just to kind of keep that profit. And then this guy, I'll just move it up to here. I definitely don't want to let it pull back more on me. Almost thought about doing a limit order here, but I think this trend is strong enough. I would rather let it. I think a previous candlestick is perfectly fine here. You know, the easy money is done. Again, big picture. You know, I don't want to get married to the trade. This was the easy money to me. We might find we might flag out here for a minute before going up. So I definitely want to wait for a little, let this have a little bit of a pullback, but I don't think allowing it to pull back here, because it totally could, is a smart thing to do. And so if I get knocked out here, I'm totally happy with that. 3 contracts gone. And, you know, this little spike lower could totally just do this. And, you know, I've took some profits off, and I'll let the rest ride here. This is kind of, yeah, I mean, this is definitely this is the opening bottom. This is where we kind of, before we kind of started to really rip. It's a logical spot to slow down, and that's what I'm trying to just play here. And then managing the risk reward of what makes sense. Like, you know, hindsight, it's like, oh, I just knocked myself out, and now I'm leaving more. I didn't capture as much, but it could easily have just done this, and so I don't want to let it do that either. So it's always about managing kind of all the possibilities and what makes the most logical sense. And as this pops up here, the next level is this guy up here. I mean, this is a huge candlestick. My thought is that once it breaks through this, we might run up to here. We'll see. I'm gonna try and just it doesn't really matter what we're at now at this point, but just for kicks, I'm gonna kind of just adjust my tools here to see where 4 and 5 are. I mean, we're still in this very tight uptrend. In terms of a 5-minute fair value gap, it's pretty much here for us to give back 720, which puts it at here before it might slow down. I'm gonna wait for this to maybe do this, and I'll trail up again. This is where that patience comes in, you know, like miss the move here, but you know what? You can capture it on the way up. Doesn't always happen, obviously, but you know, I don't need a trade like this every day, right? It's always just about making money when you can versus trying to capture everything. That doesn't work for me. It works for me to be patient and look for when I like things. And the edge, you know, the edge is there, and then the money comes from scaling. A little pullback here would make sense. It would be a bummer to have it come all the way down here. But again, I think it's just being patient, not reading into, okay, what's the worst case? You know, it could just, there's this little resistance here that it might just be testing before it goes higher. Trend line's still in play. There's no logical reason to get out. It's just emotion of of, you know, the nervousness of, oh, what if it pulls back on me? You know, that's what makes me want to, you know, trail up. And so that's what you have to not let control you or negatively impact your trading as you're entering. But I also don't want to get married to this, obviously. This is a big punch up. If it reverses that, to me, that's kind of a topping signal. But I think my stop's in a good enough spot. And we are in the middle of the range. Above, I think, really where I think we would reverse, we might just kind of do this. But it might just, you know, it might just play out a little bit longer. It might take a little bit longer to get going. And that's, you know, that's fine. Just going to see what these candlesticks look like here. And if it does start to break this uptrend, I can always trail my stop loss up a little bit if it does do a test here. And if it just rips, so be it. You know, my stop's still in a good spot. Can't, you know, it can't perfectly top out everything. Obviously, the main thing is that you caught the chunk of the move, right? That's more of what I'm caring about. I'm not trying to pick the top perfectly every time because you don't necessarily know where it is going to happen. And I think in the middle of the range here, it's better to give it a little bit more wiggle room than up here, right? I was pretty tight with it here because I thought it was going to reverse, but it actually broke through. That's pretty bullish. Seems like maybe it's just doing a fake out there and reversing. We'll see here. Doesn't look good right now, but this could just be a spike lower that turns into a reversal higher. Sorry if I'm missing questions. Obviously managing the trade, so I'll definitely move my stop up below this now. I think that's totally reasonable. I think if it comes down here, pops up, and then breaks, there's no reason to not capture that little bit. Sometimes I'll wait for it to make a new high, but I think it's so close that I think it's fine moving my stop up there. And then we'll just kind of see, you know, this upwards trend line is broken, but at this point the thought is, okay, maybe it flags out here and goes up. And if this is topping, then I get out, capture most of the move, and, you know, I'm happy with it. I'm just going to turn on actually these markers just to kind of see where. So my initial contract was here. I think that was 2x. No, that was actually more. I'm just going to put this back to 2 and 3x. So that was 2.5. So this trade, if I get knocked out here, is basically 2.5x. Looks like it's gone to about 3.5. And it's hard seeing that if it knocks you out. But, you know, again, you're not looking for... This had still plenty of upside. And so there's no reason to... The adjustment here was like, okay, I'm risking 1. Like, if you think about it, I'm risking 1 here to potentially make... Like, this is how I think about it as the trade it changes. Like, I'm risking 1 here, I think, to make 1. Not great. But, you know, that's where I'm already out some, and I think it was a decent chance that we moved there. It could still go, and it just knocked me out here and bottom and then go. But, you know, that's so be it, right? So that's how I like to manage things as they go, is how does the risk reward play out? And if we I think totally could, if we keep going, we could pop up to here. So I think I was pretty much risking 1 to make 2. So we'll see what happens here, if this stays alive or not. But to me, there's no reason to have my stop lower than this. This is a nice bottom. I think if it breaks this, it opens the door to give all this back up. There's no point in risking that. I'm risking enough here to see if this plays out in my favor or not. Do I also trend trade? I only look for reversals. To me, that just it works the best. I like to look for them. in that sense, just because it's, I think the risk reward is just better. Mentally, I've just done it so much. To me, looking for this to reverse, I can see the move and see where the target is versus looking for a continuation right here. I feel like I can't see it as easily. Again, that's totally personal preference. A lot of people are continuation or breakout traders, and it works great for them. You know, trading is all about finding what works for your personality. Just kind of waiting this out now. I think it's going to knock me out, but, you know, maybe reverse psychology will work. I already cashed 2.7. I think it looks like it's roughly 2.4, but I did already take 3 contracts off. So I took 3 contracts off here. So I only have 2/5 of my trade still going. Because this to me was the easy money, this move right here. So I took most of it off because the possibility of us slowing down here and reversing was pretty high. And then the idea is, okay, I have a little bit left still to see if we do the rest of this move. But I think it's less likely. And so, you know, I took some off. And so that's where another new thing that I've been doing is scaling in and scaling out. I haven't really figured out how to scale in as well. But, you know, my entries, I mean, this is, I mean, just about a perfect entry. And those pullbacks that I'm doing like this have been making the entries look amazing. And so, you know, if this is all that works, then I just add on more here, you know. But right now I'm kind of figuring it out. And if I just full size right away and that's what makes sense, I'll do that. But again, it's, you know, trading's all about slowly seeing how things play out, see how things work. It's not a fast game, you know. It takes weeks or months to make little incremental changes, and that's what I've been doing over the last few months. And not changes aren't necessarily going to make you money right away. The last couple of months have been not great, but now that I've kind of made this final change, the P&L has already been way better, and I think it's going to just kind of go up from here. You know, obviously there'll be some variance with trades working and out and not. But just with how the risk reward is, it's even with a 50% win rate, like it'll be extremely, extremely profitable. So I risked about $800 on this trade. Looks like it's gonna knock me out here. Just gonna kind of see. Pretty much I'll be up 2,000 on the trade. So what is that? 2.5, a little under. Still in though. You never know. Like they say in poker, chip in a chair. How much percent can one make in a trade? I don't really think about it like that. I think about just the risk reward money wise. Okay, out on that. Yeah, so about 2,000 on the trade. I don't think there's any point in giving this more wiggle room. I think this punches down here now. Big picture, you know, that was the move I was looking for. I gave it some room to keep going, but I mean, what is that retracement wise? Someone says 75%. I mean, it's at least 60. So yeah, not much more to say on that. Let me know if you guys have any questions on that trade. I'll see if I answer them. Again, this platform is called NinjaTrader if you're wanting to check it out. I highly recommend it for practicing and testing out futures if you're looking to do this style. I don't trade a prop firm. I trade my own money. I just prefer my own money over prop firms. I don't really like all the rules and stuff. I prefer the flexibility. How many risk reward? I mean, it's still on the, I mean, it's a little under 2.5x. Like I got out here and here. Here's 2R, you know, here's 3, you know, and so 2.25, 2.25. But again, it's for me, it's about like I want to go for the good risk reward, but I like to lean into what the actual price is telling me, because that allows me to let the market do what it's going to do. Like if this was just going to pop up here, I would have been able to capture some of that. And on this trade, I risked $800. That's about half size right now. Because of all the changes I'm making, I'm risking smaller amounts. But as you know, I get more confident and used to this new style of entering on pullbacks like this, I will size up and the money will skyrocket. And so that's where it's like, it's not about the money, it's about the process. And that's what I think you want to always focus on, is that process, because it's so easy for you to just turn this number of risking $800 into 8,000. Obviously you need the money to be able to risk, but like scaling up and trading is extremely easy. The problem is scaling down if you blow your account. I will be live tomorrow morning, same time. I'll be trading the rest of the week. I won't be trading Friday because it's a holiday. Why was this a bottoming signal? So I'll walk through this trade real quick. I mean, big picture, every morning I come in and look at, okay, where are the levels, right? This was a level, down here was a level. There was a couple little levels in here, but those don't really matter. And so you can see here, this main support level, we touched it right here. We came down and touched it. And so right off the bat, this is the spot where the market's bottomed multiple times. I'm going to look to see if it bottoms here again. And then the second thing was, well, I like to look at this fair value gap indicator, because these to me signal unhealthy moves. And so we kind of zoom in here because it happened quickly. These red boxes are it showing an unhealthy move to the downside. And so when an unhealthy move combined with a support level happens, it's likely to bounce here, and an unhealthy move needs to recover to become a healthy move. Even if this continues lower, it's very likely to have a snap here. And so that's kind of that's my main combo that I use of how I see where these happen. And then that's on a 5-minute chart. And then on a 1-minute chart is really looking just at the micro moves of, okay, how do I find the exact bottom and enter? And so these, if we go through the checklist, like this is already checked off by, okay, it being at a bigger picture level. The reversal zone is down here, that main one from a larger chart. We had that unhealthy move with all these boxes on a 5-minute chart. And then there was kind of this 1-minute downtrend here that I was looking at. And once it broke it right here, that's broken. And then to me, the actual reversal pattern was, we had kind of a double bottom here, and this candlestick actually made a new high. So we started to adjust, making higher lows and actually a higher high. And then as well as we had this kind of tight downtrend line channel here actually. And this move, it started with a big move to the downside, became in this healthy channel, and then it accelerated and blew out the lows. And I see that as a likelihood that it gets too overextended, and that can be a bottoming signal. And so that, combined with everything, was a great reason for this to bottom here. And so to me, that was the reversal pattern. And then the pullback entry was, as I was watching this move up, I was, this is pretty clear. I'll kind of clean this up a little bit, is I use a Fibonacci tool from this high to down here. And I believe it was down there. Yes. So I take basically the low here to the high and do a 50% pullback. Because to me, that's a healthy pullback, a logical pullback. And so that's where I put my entry. You know, I use my risk reward tool to tell me how many contracts to trade. And so I entered in, I had a limit order here ready for a pullback. And then my stop below the low. Because my reasoning with this trade is that this is the bottom. If this holds, I think it's going to go up. You know, or if this bottoms, this is going to be the bottom. And so that's how I try and lean into the stop more than the entry. And because that to me is, if it breaks this, well, okay, the signal's not there, it's not going to bottom, I'll just move on, right? The trade's not going to work out. But if that holds, to me, that's the logical spot. Even if it pulls back here and almost touches it and sits here for a while, it's not going to break this. And then just getting in on this pullback allows me to get better risk reward. And then from there, it was just kind of managing with the swings. I talked through that as I went through it. You can always go look at the recording after I'm done streaming. I am trading the MNQ versus the NQ just because it allows me to scale in and out. I mean, right now, even with half size, I need 5 contracts. And so that would be half a normal contract. And so I like the flexibility that it gives me to be able to, you know, I scaled out 3 out of 5 here and scaled out 2 out of 5 here. The software I'm using here to trade is called NinjaTrader. There's a link for it in the description. I highly recommend using it if you want to trade futures. I've used it for over 5 years at this point. How can you swing trade my strategy? I mean, just use the same logic on a larger time frame. I can't tell you specifics because I haven't done that myself, but roughly, if you can read a chart like this, you know, time frames are just time frames. The candlesticks still tell you the same thing. You know, and if you want more detailed explanation of my strategy, just go check out my YouTube videos. They're very polished and will give you every detail you kind of need. And it'll also talk you through how futures work. Why do we wait for a 50% pullback instead of a full pullback? Well, what is a full pullback? That's so subjective. To me, this is a pullback right here. And I think just for me, if, you know, the market was right here, right? And I was looking at, okay, well, I want to jump in with a limit order on a 50% pullback. It's just, from what I see, is 50% pullbacks are very, very common. If the market's going to pull back here and keep going up, that's where it's going to pull back to. And so to me, that's a very good spot to put my order. Now, it could pull back more and then shoot up, or it could pull back a little bit, not fill me and shoot up. You know, there's always a trade-off with everything in trading. And so it's hard to, you know, just like up here, right? Like I was looking for a pullback, it didn't happen. That's what works for me, and that's kind of how it plays out. And so the brokerage I use is still NinjaTrader. So I use the platform and everything on the same platform. Are the commissions and fee I trade per trade taxable? So the profits for futures are like technically 60-40 long-term capital gains versus short-term, unlike stocks, which I think is a big thing long-term. Commissions and fees, I think technically you could write off if you made a business. But again, I'm not a tax expert. I try and avoid kind of talking about it too much because it's just not my spot. If you want to learn more about my support zones and just more about my strategy, let me show you a video to go look at. if you scroll down to on my homepage, this video will tell you everything about how I draw my levels. This one will tell you about futures. This will kind of get you started on why I trade futures. So if you're kind of new, go check this playlist out. It'll help a ton. And if you want to check out the platform I use, there's a link for it in the description. The scaling tool that I use is not built into NinjaTrader. This one, it's customized, so you do have to get that. There's a link for that in the description too. I think at that point, I'm going to call it for the day. I'm not going to look to take another trade. Caught the move. So I appreciate everyone being here. And I will be here tomorrow and the next day and the next day. Just looking to execute the strategy. So awesome to see that people were able to capture the move and take advantage as well. So have a good rest of your day, and I will see you tomorrow.